tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations, exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Are you one of thousands of individuals who know you have psychic abilities but don't know how to tap into your higher self? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who offers classes that can help you reach your goals. Refined Divine holds classes Monday and Thursday at her 2 locations and via Zoom. Classes consist of manifestation, learning psychic abilities, shadow work, and healing trauma. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
This is Psychic Medium Deb. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies tonight with a low around 66, Thursday partly cloudy with a high near 79, and Friday sunny with a high around 87. Zero Res cleans carpet, tile, hardwood, rugs, upholstery, and air ducts using no harsh soaps or chemicals, and it's safe for pets. Right now, you can get 3 rooms Zero Resified for $124 plus $50 off your air duct cleaning. Call 952-ZERO-RES or visit ZeroResMinnesota.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us, share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us on this Wednesday evening. Before we get too far into things, stick around because we are giving away tickets tonight to the Minnesota Renaissance Festival that actually starts this weekend. We'll be giving away a couple tickets tonight, so please stick around. It's going to be great for that. We have an awesome guest that we're going to get to in a second here. Meanwhile, at the AM 950 Pleasure Palace, we have Adam. How are things going tonight, Adam?
Things are going great tonight. Unlike last week, I don't have lights and things turning off and on by themselves or weird figures through the security cam. So tonight has been a very clean and efficient night.
Yeah, that's not a way a paranormal investigator talks. I'm just going to be honest with you.
When a paranormal investigator has a bunch of affidavit stuff to put together to catch up to the halfway point of his month, he wants nothing extra on his plate.
Well, you know, I mean, it's you get a D for the night. Let's just start with that. I mean, unfortunately, we had to start everything on a sour note, but you know, just got to be real over here tonight. You know what I'm saying? So
hey, it's still a passing grade in some states.
Yeah, right. It's still better than some. Anyway, we're not going to get too down on that. So yeah, no, that's good. I was going to ask you if things had gone askew at all. I mean, I think the askew you had today was I stayed at the station past 2 p.m. today. So, I mean, you got that going for you. That was weird. So,
yeah, that was new and different.
Yeah, I didn't like it either. Trust me. I'm planning on not doing that ever again. But, you know, that's how it goes.
Well, you get in here in the AM hours. I will definitely give you that. I normally don't start my day until 1. So I will give you leaving later.
I get into the AM hours, but I do not start my day until about 3 p.m. And
makes sense.
You know, that's when it's kind of like, oh, where am I? Oh, I'm here. So you know, you got that. So So, Adam, we have a great program tonight. I've been really blessed. This week has been fantastic. A really great run of programs, and I've been getting a lot of actual a lot of people saying how much they appreciated last night's episode with Psychic Being Refined Divine, as far as being transparent about a lot of stuff. That's available on Spotify. Go check it out. It's very helpful. And the one thing I wanted to say about that is the fact that, doing a paranormal show, this is a different side to it, but it still fits into it because it's all about energy. It's all about learning about yourself. Very good stuff. Now, tonight, I'm really excited. We are going to be talking about a new book that's coming out from Darby Harn called Dead Malls. And Darby is the best-selling, critically acclaimed author of, like we just talked about, Dead Malls, Stargun Messenger, a self-published science fiction contest quarterfinalist, and Ever the Hero, which Publisher Weekly called an entertainment debut that uses superpowers as a metaphor to delve into class politics and an alternate America. His fiction appears in Strange Horizons, Inner Zone, Fantasy Magazine, and more. He is a contributor to FanFi Addict, as well as a panelist, moderator, and programmer designing a variety of content modules for conventions, including his 1 hour short story workshop featured at several major cons. He graduated from the University of Iowa and is alum of the Irish Writing Program at Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland. Darby Harn, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it too. Now, you and I had met actually out over at, and you met Adam as well, if I'm not mistaken, out over at Des Moines Con way back. Gosh, what was that? June. Do you do you said you do a lot of major cons. Are you coming up for Twin Cities Con?
I am. I'll be there, and I'll be there with my workshop again. And I absolutely love Twin Cities. It's one of my favorite shows, and a Nerd Street, which puts on Twin Cities and Des Moines Con both. They're just fantastic.
Yeah, they're a sponsor of ours, and we were blown away by Des Moines Con. That was a lot of fun. We were blown away last year at Twin Cities Con. You were probably there last year, and we probably never even knew each other. But it's cool. You're going to be there. I know that we all know Joe Prozet. Also, Brandon Frazier just been announced over at Twin Cities Con. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm a big Mummy fan, so that's cool.
That is really cool. So why don't we just delve into, because Dead Malls is your newest book, right?
Yes.
And I'm a little confused. Has it come out yet, or is it about to come out?
The retail release is about to come out first week of September. The book was a Kickstarter early in the spring, and I have been selling it at the shows this summer. So Des Moines Con was actually the first show that I had it, and so it's been available. And the edition that you get at the cons is you can only get at the shows, and that's this really fun VHS thing, which is like a VHS slipcover.
I saw that.
So it's a lot of fun. So so it's kind of out and not, I guess. It will be available everywhere coming September 5th.
I'm just going to quickly, when I say quickly, it means we'll probably take the entire rest of the show, me trying to figure this out. But let me just do this real fast. For those who are watching, this is the version of it that is available. You said at the cons, right?
Yes. Yep.
I love it.
Thank you so much. I wanted to do something special, and I kind of knew right when I had the idea for the books, this was a couple years ago, that I wanted to do something very 80s, and the VHS thing, basically, I knew I wanted to do that, and it took that entire 2 years writing the book to be able to pull off the slipcover, which was way more complicated than I guess I would have thought initially, the production of it. But I'm very happy with it. People seem to love it. I got a terrific response to it at every show I've done, including Des Moines Con, and that really makes me happy, because this is by far and away the most favorite thing I've ever written. This is kind of the book I've been meaning to write my entire life. So,
and did you grow up in the 80s?
I sure did. Yep.
Okay, so I mean, all right. So because you never know, and do you find it? I mean, to me, it's still a little bit surreal that the way that we see people fictionalize the 60s when we were kids in the 80s. Now we are adults in the 2020s, and people, including yourself, are now paying homage to the 80s, which is actually further away than we were from the 60s in the 80s. To me, it's still something I'm trying to get my head around. I'm going to be perfectly honest about that.
I remember thinking as a kid that events that were very recent, whether it was anything in the 60s or 70s, felt like a million years, before I was born, kind of a thing. And of course, you have no sense of scale. I remember the day that John Lennon died. I remember it very vividly. And so my mom was a huge Beatles fan, and so she would talk about the 60s, which at that point was just very recent, but for me it seemed very far away. And then now the 80s is much further away than that was then. And I think in some way the book is a little bit trying to stay in contact with that, both the sort of the not necessarily in the nostalgia of the 80s, because it wasn't all great, but to stay in touch with the positivity of it, and also the dread, because there was a fair amount of dread as well.
Just totally. So why don't you tell us, because I'd like to delve into all that a little bit more, but I'd like you to tell us about the book, let us know what is the book, what is Dead Malls?
Yeah, so it's a novel, and basically I describe it. It's sort of, if you can imagine, if Stephen King wrote a choose your own adventure novel. So it's sort of a love letter to all things 80s, sort of sci-fi horror fantasy mashup, and it's just weird. And in a nutshell, it's about Sam, who is a security guard working at a dying mall in the present day. Sam is having a really rough time of it. They're sleeping in their car. They're just trying to get through their shift. One night, an intruder breaks into the mall and claims to be the only survivor of a nuclear war, which happened in 1983. And then things get really, really weird.
Wow.
From there.
And is that where you start going off and choosing the different where you're gonna take the story yourself?
It is, yeah. It's sort of the choose your own adventure element is an element of the novel, and it sort of creeps up on you. And I originally intended it to be like a spoiler, like it was going to be a surprise. And then I found in the course of talking to people about it, it was better just to be upfront with it and sort of set the right expectations. But it does begin to, as you get right about that moment in the story, as things start to unfold, things start to branch, and it gets really twisty and really, really interesting and fun. And if you're an 80s kid like I am, there's a lot of really cool 80s things that are sort of part of the book.
How do you write a choose your own adventure? I've always thought that was just incredible how you can do that, and it takes you to different areas, and it just the outcome and everything else. But it kind of hurts my brain to think about how you'd write something like that.
It's very challenging. So I'm sort of a intuitive sort of writer. I'm not a great outliner. But I don't. My Siri is talking for some reason.
It's paranormal. That's what that's going on. You'd be surprised how much paranormal activity happens during the show. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. There you
are. But for me, it was this because of the choose your own adventure element. It required by far and away for me the most rigid sort of structure. So I had to know exactly what page number certain things happened on and landed on. And if you remember, of course, the choose your own adventure books that we grew up with, they were all about, I would say, and some of them were much more elaborate in terms of their options than Dead Malls is. I deliberately wanted Dead Malls to be somewhat concise to avoid getting too carried away. But I also wanted to replicate that experience of being able to start over, to go back, to open doors that then open to other doors. And So that required me to be very clinical about the structure. So it was a lot of building a document, which was basically a very rigid outline. And that took a while.
I bet, because you needed to know where you're going and how, I mean, do you have any idea how many different stories could be told in that book based on what you've done?
I have a general sense, yeah. I believe there are 6 different decision trees, which, and there are a couple hidden ones that there is a very famous choose your own adventure book whose name I'm now escaping. Has a hidden ending. I think it's 5150. It has a hidden ending that you can only find by breaking the rules. And I just always remember that as a kid. And I thought I'm gonna do that in Dead Mall. So there's one hidden ending, but yeah, I think it's 6 different branches. Yeah.
When you decided to embark upon Dead Malls and write it as a choose your own adventure, when you decided to go into the realm of being an author, was a choose your own adventure something that you always wanted to do, or did this project just kind of speak to you as this is a choose your own adventure type book?
It was kind of both. So I always knew in the back of my mind I wanted to do something with the concept. I didn't know what. So I had this sort of kernel of an idea for years. I thought, what if, what could I do with choose your own adventure that would be quote unquote adult or grown up? And then one morning, a couple years ago, I was doing a show in Davenport at the North Park Mall, and I was loading in, and it was very cold and dark and sort of dreary and inside the mall. And for whatever reason, that idea, the choose your own adventure and the mall pancaked together in that moment. And almost the entire book sort of just went right there. And right away I had Sam, and I had this intruder, and it came together very quickly after that.
It sounds very serendipitous, I mean, It's just, I love that. That is, and that's what always fascinates me about the creative process, is that you could, and I just interviewed an author, and she said, some days it took like hours to write the opening paragraph to something, and other days I wrote half a book in a night. And to me it's just so wonderful, because it affects, and it and everybody approaches it in a very different way. It's beautiful, actually. I love that.
I'm fascinated by process. I love to. I'm sort of, like I said, I'm a very intuitive writer, so sometimes that goes very quickly. It depends on how clear things are to me, and if they're not clear, then maybe things can be fuzzy and they take longer. But I enjoy the process. I'm in love with writing, and enjoy being creative. So
that's fantastic. Why don't we go ahead and do this? First of all, folks, in the Twin Cities area, you want to go to the Minnesota Renaissance Festival? It starts this weekend. We have tickets we're going to give away that are good for the first 4 weekends of the Renaissance Festival. Would love to give a pair of tickets away tonight. You can do so. Call in 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. We're going to give a pair of tickets to caller number 5. Please do so. And stick around, because we're just starting our conversation with Darby Harn. We're talking about Dead Malls. You are listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations, exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
And tomorrow is the date as we are doing a paranormal investigation in the basement of Divine Lights in Anoka tomorrow. This is a haunted location. A lot of people always want to know, hey, can we investigate with you? Hey, can we go on an investigation? How do we get to an investigation? Well, tomorrow between 6 and 9 p.m., we're going to be doing that, and it's going to be a fantastic an evening, and it's going to be over at Divine Lights. You can go to Charvinity on Facebook. That's the name of the page, Charvinity, CHARVINITY, and go under events, and the Anoka Paranormal Investigation is what it's called. If you sign up and go tomorrow, we're giving away 4 pairs of tickets to the Renaissance Festival, and would love to be able to give those to you. So come on out, investigation. It's going to be a lot of fun. So please make sure you do so. We are talking with author Darby Harn, and we've been talking about the book Dead Malls, and we're going to talk more about it. Darby, I got a question from the comments. I think it's a really good one. Linda asked the question, Darby, did you write each mall story completely before making the branches?
Yes, I did. And some of them I wrote all the way through, and I felt that was part of this, being very rigid in the structure, where I had to know exactly how long it was, and therefore which page it landed on or would land on. And sometimes I got very, in the revision process, maybe you're cutting and then you lose a page, and then the next thing you know, your whole plan has gone out the window. So you have to finesse it. Yeah.
I bet. I mean, I find it so fascinating, let alone to write a book, but to write something like that is really quite the achievement. Do you consider malls, because you use that in the 80s? I mean, that seems to be a very, to me, when you set a story in the 80s in a mall, that does not shock me, stun me, or anything one bit, because we grew up in that. Do you think the 80s was kind of the pinnacle of the mall?
For me, it was. I'm some of my earliest memories are in the mall. I'm a Star Wars baby, so I remember very vividly being at the toy store and the wall of Star Wars toys. And just, for me that was the best place on earth. So it was a very formative thing. And because I was so little, the mall was so big. And so the mall here in town, which is now empty, was the epicenter of town. And actually everything that was downtown had relocated to the mall, Sears and Penny's. So they had all been downtown. So downtown had emptied. And then so that coincided with the 80s were very bad in that regard here in town, but the mall was like this palace.
Truly. I mean, I feel like I could have the same story that you did. And I never really called myself a Star Wars baby, but I suppose I am. I mean, I saw the film when it came out. I don't know if I always say when it originally came out in 77, but when I was 4, but I don't know. Maybe maybe it was one of the re-releases. But that whole everything else you said, the toys in the shopping mall, and the shopping mall being the center of the community, and everything else, and as well as the mall that I go to, hit by a tornado in the mid '80s. By the time we get to the end of the '80s, it's a shell of itself, and it limps along until the early 21st century. It's stuff like that really sticks with you. And the funny thing about, and I ended up working at this mall, Apache Plaza, is that there are parts of this place that there's nothing in there, but it was genuinely creepy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That was part of my ambition, I think, in writing the book, was wanting to capture that malls are these great liminal spaces. And
Yes.
they're now they have this very haunted quality, because they were, for our childhood, they were the center of the community most often, and now they're empty in the community. We feel very, in the 2025, everything feels disconnected, or it seems like it. And when you lose those places of contact and community, whether it's downtown or the mall or what have you, then you feel very severed. And the mall, though, remains, and it's more so than downtown or places like that. It's this huge empty monolith that sort of represents so many different things. And it was really fun to try to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we're having some internet issues. I don't know if it's on my end or if it's on your, Darby. Do you know, Adam? I'm just curious. Is that is everything coming through well, and it's just on my end, or what?
It's shut out a couple of times, but it looks like it's on one of your guys' ends.
That's super helpful. That's what I knew it was one of ours. I didn't know which one.
Well, I just checked our internet connection, and I know it's not ours.
No, I know it's not yours either, or AM 950. For once, it's working. Darby, can you? Because I always forget the name of the space that you just referred to. What was that space?
Liminal spaces.
Can you explain that? Because my whole life I've been fascinated by it, and I never knew what it was called. But there's a ton of videos out there about it, showing different examples of it, and it's so fascinating.
It is. It's and you see this on YouTube. There's a whole genre of YouTube video which is dedicated to places like this, and the liminal space essentially is places that are in between. And so the mall is sort of the case example of this. I think it's a space that is in between community and activity and living, and now also just decay and the past. And so it represents, figuratively and literally, this gateway to the past, which was, for me, was part of that inspiration for the novel, which is in the book, it's a literal gateway to the past. And all the doors and all the halls and all the hidden passes, malls are rife with hidden doors and passes that we never really were aware of, became fodder for this, what ended up in the novel became this great big maze.
Because that's a big part of what those spaces are, is the emptiness and the like when something kind of goes out of your eye line. You can only see so much, goes into another room, or like you said, the halls that just kind of go, and you might see it curve at the very end, but you don't know where it's going. And the way that it's lit might be like a single spotlight highlighting like a curve in that area. It's stuff that you're just like, I think to people like you and I, we're probably like, I want to go there. I want to see what's over there. But to some people, it actually is, it could be unnerving.
I think so. And it's scary, but yet there's something about it that sort of compels you, and you want to know more about it. And you want to know what could be around that corner or behind that door. And the mall becomes foreboding because it's so large and monolithic, and it's so empty, but yet it contains so much. And there's just something about it that, more so than other spaces I can think of, that represents all those things at once.
It truly does. Now, when we were down at Des Moines Con, I was down there with Adam and his wife Danielle, and we had a table. a lot of people came up to us, and they wanted to talk about paranormal and stuff.
Mhm.
And we were inundated with people saying, what you really need to do in Des Moines is go to the Merle Hay Mall. And
Mhm.
that seems like a place that got my attention. Did you use that at all, or even like put any sort of like base anything off of anything in that mall? Because if the for those that we talked about on the show, this is a mall that is pretty much it's pretty much empty, right? And that people believe it to be very haunted. They think that there are like dolls that move around in there. It's a huge like space, and a lot of people that we talked to were just like, you got to check this out.
I'm very familiar with Merle Hay. It was, I believe, in the 50s, 60s, something like that. It was, there was a fire in the 70s, excuse me. And so it has a little bit of lore. And I didn't base anything in particular on Merle Hay. I was thinking a little bit more of my local mall, in this, where Merle Hay, excuse me, is one level. Mine is 2, and so I have that in the book. And but I sort of was thinking of just all these malls that are now everywhere, that are they're sort of all over the landscape, and they all sort of have individual character, but they're all essentially the same thing. They're just big empty boxes.
They really are. And we have a mall next to the station, Eden Prairie Center, and they lost one of their anchor stores. I don't know how long ago, but it was in one of the big anchor areas that obviously very clearly dates back to the 60s. So the outside of it is very dated, and I consider in a good way dated. That it's but it's amazing how that kind of stuff really just it just screams like mysterious. It just screams like, suddenly it's almost takes on a personality separate from everywhere else in the mall, because it's just so fascinating to look at.
It sort of becomes it's like trapped in amber a little bit. It's frozen in time. I have there are places like that in the mall here, elsewhere, that are very, the mall opened, I want to say, in the early 70s, so it had that sort of aesthetic originally of the late 60s, early 70s. And I was really compelled by that in writing about the novel, because I really wanted to focus not just on the mall, but in the way that the characters also trapped in their moment, and specifically for the intruder, Diane, who has this very incredible story about being from the 80s. She's very much trapped in that moment of this war that happened in 1983. She was 9 years old at the time, and so her world literally ended in that moment, and so that's all she remembers, and that's really all she's trying to get back to.
And being the age that we are, very clearly the day after must have had some sort of effect on you, that that it takes apart. Because one of the things that you mentioned earlier in when we were talking about, there's a lot of great things from the 80s, but there's also a lot of scary things from the 80s. And when you say that, in my mind comes the constant threat of nuclear annihilation, constant threat of World War III with Russia, with the Soviet Union, excuse me, very different. And that seems to be, when you're talking about that part of the story, that's like, to me, it's like, yes, to me, that's the 80s right there.
Especially that period there, 1983, which for me, in my memory, it was amazing. It was a couple years ago. It was during the pandemic, and there was a Twitter account or an Instagram account that was something like that was dedicated to like apocalyptic movies, and they started talking about The Day After. They started talking about Threads. They started talking about Testament. I thought it was just me that was traumatized by these movies, watching them as a kid. No, it was all of us. It was an entire generation. I remember watching The Day After the night it aired. So this is late 83, and this is the lowest period of the Cold War. So just a couple months earlier, in September, the Soviets had shot down South Korean air flight killed 300 people, including a U.S. congressman. And that seemed to be in the moment that I recall, the moment where everybody thought that this is probably going to happen. There's a real just sort of sense of fatalism about it, and especially around the time the movie came out. And so I really had that in the back of my mind, and those things never leave you. It seems very strange today in the world we live in. We're very privileged. We're very lucky to have escaped all that. But I wanted to kind of go back into that mindset of just this sort of utter dread of the apocalypse. You know?
I remember probably a couple years before, day after, early 80s, and you and I would have been very young at that point. The Star, now it's called the Star Tribune. Back then it was just the Minneapolis Star, and it ran a image, like someone drew an image of downtown Minneapolis, and then underneath an image of downtown Minneapolis, what it might look like after a nuclear bomb hits it. Who would do that? And I remember just poring over this picture, like going between the two, like what would what building was that? Oh my gosh, just and like you said, that stuff doesn't leave you, because it's like, is this imminent? Is this close? So to be able to capture that in your book to a certain degree, to help to be able to tell the story you want to, that's pretty incredible, actually.
Oh, thank you. I leaned really hard into those fears, which, in those latent subconscious fears of something as a kid you just don't even you can't comprehend. But the Day After, which is a movie I haven't seen in a long time, I imagine it's somewhat dated, but you just remember the images, you remember the sounds, you remember the fear of I remember the thing I remember most. I had nightmares about it for a long time after, was the cars all quit, like the motors quit
right before the missile hits, right?
And so I had these dreams as a kid for a long time after the car just stopping, and you knew what that meant. And anytime the car would stop in real life because you ran out of gas or something, you would just be like, oh no.
Absolutely.
So it was an interesting time to be a kid, and so I just wanted to touch base with that a little bit, because it feels like another life, it feels like another world, and that was part of my entry into writing some of this. Yeah.
So basically what you're saying, when I read this book, I need to pull out my grade school desk so I can then hide underneath it in case of, say something happens, because that's what we all had to do, right? I'm a researcher of British television, and so I buy as much of the stuff as I can from the UK and other places. And one title I did buy was Threads, which is a BBC. The BBC version, not that it's a remake, but the BBC version of The Day After, for those who don't know. And I still have refused to watch it. I mean, my contemporaries in the UK who grew up on it, they're just like, they're just they'll revisit and I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? You
don't really need to rewatch Threads. Threads more so than Day After. I'll never forget Threads. It aired here on PBS, I think.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it. This is the same time frame as Day After, and I'll never forget the milk bottle was on fire. I remember the cat rolling around in the debris. All the terrible Ruth at the end screaming. The images of Threads, more so even than Day After, were just overwhelming. And it was a great example of the way that art can be active in the culture, because Threads in the UK and I believe to some extent here was really drove anti nuclear proliferation and all that sort of sentiment that was active at that moment.
Absolutely. We're talking with author Darby Harn. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about, we got some questions in the comments. We're going to talk about some of his other work as well, and how you can get these books as well too. So please stick around. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
What if one day could open your heart, spark your spirit, and connect you to your most authentic self? That day is Saturday, August 23rd from 10 to 6 at the Litz Rock Shops Woo Woo Festival at the Taylors Falls Memorial Community Center, located at 312 Government Street in Taylors Falls. Explore tarot, oracle, psychic, and mediumship readings. Listen to inspiring speakers covering fascinating metaphysical topics. Soak in the calm tones of live hand pan music. Shop handcrafted goods, crystals, metaphysical tools, books, and more. It's just $5 cash at the door as a free will offering. And remember, Taylors Falls is a destination. Come out for the festival and stay to explore the natural beauty, historic charm, and energy of this incredible town. And yes, there will be walking tacos.
The Let's Rock Shops Woo Festival, Saturday, August 23rd from 10 to 6 at 312 Government Street, Taylors Falls Memorial Community Center. Just $5 at the door. Come for the woo, stay for the wonder, and the walking tacos. Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations, exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We're going to have a replay of a conversation with Paul Blake Smith. We're going to be talking about the JFK conspiracy. Paul had written a number of books about the assassination, about the conspiracy. Really a wealth of knowledge. This was our first of, I think we did like 3 total conversations about JFK on the show. This is the first of them. Well worth checking out. We're going to do that tomorrow. Casual Friday is obviously going to be Friday. And we have a special guest, Ernie Pack, is going to join us as we start talking about the Rock Island Esoteric Expo that's happening October 4th in Rock Island, Illinois. We're all going to be out there for this. But the thing is that Ernie, his wife Denise, Greg Yost, and then myself, we're all having events on October 3rd out there. We want to talk about what that is because it's all about communicating with Sasquatch and communicating with aliens. So we have that to look forward to as well. We are talking with author Darby Harn. We were talking about his most recent book, Dead Malls, and there's so much more there that beyond just that book. And I would like to point you to go over to Darby Harn. That's DarbyHarn.com, because you can see everything that's going on for Darby, including he has a Patreon there as well. It's always good to support your authors. And then you have a store, Darby, that you can buy books. It looks like that you can get signed books as well.
That's right. Through my store, you can get signed copies of all my books, including Dead Malls. I sign everything. So if you're not able to see me at one of the shows, I'm more than happy to get you a signed copy. Yeah.
So, and you can get, so am I reading this right? You can get the Dead Malls limited edition VHS slipcover through the site as well, right?
Yes.
And that's a pre-order. And tell me about this. Looks like fun. Tell me about the Dead Malls member card.
Yeah, so I wanted to do like a book when I was doing the Kickstarter back in the spring. I wanted to do like a bookmark for Dead Malls, and then for whatever reason, I was just like, well, wait a minute, I have something here. So instead of just a regular bookmark, I said, let's do like a little homage to the Blockbuster membership card that we all know and love. And several people at the shows, so they come up to the table and they buy Dead Malls. They still have their Blockbuster membership card on them in their wallet. So it's a little homage. It's far more resonant than I would have thought. And it's just very cool. It's part of the fun experience.
Well, and I was thinking when you're saying that, it's like you are able, and this is the great part about being a creative and an author, that is, you're creating a world, and you're creating really what goes even beyond that in terms of something like the card or whatever else, that you are in complete control, and that you can create whatever you want and however you want it. That has to be so much fun to do.
It is. In this book, Dead Malls may be the best expression of that for me personally. I am an independent author. I take an enormous amount of joy in being in creative control of what I'm doing. I get to write the books I want, and the successes are mine, so are the failures. But with Dead Malls, it was something like, well, I wanted to do like a VHS thing. I wanted to do the membership card. Those aren't things in a traditional publishing scenario that I necessarily would have been able to do, or the publisher may have even been interested in. And then also not just the writing, but the project of making the slipcover, the project of making the card and bringing all that to life was just a creative process itself. And it was just a real joy. And to have people enjoy it, embrace it the way they have, I'm still a little bit in shock at what happened. Des Moines Con was the first show I had it. And that Sunday afternoon, I had a panel at 4:00, and the panel ended at 4, show ended at 5. Usually that last hour of the show, is pretty quiet. I walked back from the panel to the show, and I turned around, and this group of people had followed me from the panel back to the show, and they all wanted Dead Malls. And I sold something like 50 copies of Dead Malls at that show.
Oh, wow.
I figured I'd probably sell 50 maybe this summer and fall,
And you sold them all within that short period of time at Des Moines Con. That's great.
I've been very stunned and very happy. So thank you everybody who's bought the book, and people have bought it and they've read it literally overnight. They come back the next day at the shows to tell me that they really enjoyed it. So for someone like me who's not used to things like that, I'm very, very grateful, very happy with that. Yeah.
Well, it sounds well deserved. Also,
thank you.
It really does. Now, I'm on your site and I'm looking under my books, not my books, but your books, as it happens. Whoever's doing your covers, they're killing it. These are beautiful. These are wonderful, and to me they're and hopefully I'm not getting wrong. They kind of remind me not the character designs, but just like the overall layout seems very almost like anime to me, manga to me.
There's some vibes there, manga, especially with Stargun Messenger, which is my space opera, and that's the bright pink one. The cover artist for most of my books is Al Hess, who is also an author. And Al is someone, Greg, I think you would love to have on the show and talk to, because Al's books are all about aliens and weird conspiracies and things like that. And you would love it, I think. Al's book, World Running Down, just the other day finished 3rd in the self-published science fiction contest, a 3rd finalist overall, and it's just a lot of fun. I would be nowhere without Al, for sure.
That's great. These look fantastic, and I bet the insides match the outsides. They probably complement each other very, very well. Here's an interesting question. Linda asks, let's see here. She says, Robert Louis Stevenson introduced Twice Told Tales by retelling newspaper stories that are very short and filling out the missing details. Did you ever want to do that?
Oh, that's really interesting. I sometimes am inspired by things in real life. I don't know that I ever sort of thought of that with the newspaper, but I sometimes will grab onto things in real life. And I actually, I'm glad you asked that question, Linda, because my book, Ever the Hero, which is the first one on that page, was actually inspired by a newspaper article I read in the New York Times 2011 or 2012. And it was about a man whose house burned down in, I believe it was Tennessee, and rural Tennessee, and firefighters, where he lived, you had to pay an annual fee, and he had not paid it. And so his house caught on fire, and the firefighters just watched it burn down.
Oh my God.
And I was in such shock at that they would let that happen, for whatever reason. That led me to think, well, what if you had to pay for superheroes? What if Spidey or Superman were like, hey, are you paid up? And so that ultimately led to Ever the Hero. And that was that book, that series is just a lot of fun.
I love that. Now, Linda brings up something else very important that I think people should know about too. And I saw this on the page, and I'm glad you brought this up, Linda. She said she downloaded the sample PDF of Dead Malls at your website, darbyharn.com. Folks, do that, and hopefully, I would love to see some of these people who do so turn that around into a sale for you, because it's like, isn't it like, how much of the book did you have out there as a sample?
I believe it's the first 5 chapters.
That's what I thought.
And thank you so much, Linda, for doing that. And people feel free to take a look and see if it's kind of your thing. The 5 chapters, I think, is a good sort of indication of the book. So hopefully you enjoy it.
Hopefully. And then once again, folks, please consider to, get some of the books, get a personalized book. Go over to darbyharn.com, and I'll put this in all of the socials after the fact to make sure that everyone knows where to go to check out, and not only to get the books, but just check out what's going on with Darby. You have a lot of stuff going on. How are you only doing writing now, or do you still have a full-time job? I'm just kind of curious.
I am a full-time writer. I'm very lucky that way. I I do I review books for Fanfi Addict. I'm very behind on that due to some personal stuff going on elsewhere in my life. But this is the full-time gig, and I'm very happy. I'm very lucky that it has become. It was the only thing I ever wanted to do as a kid, and it's the only thing I'm good at. So I feel very lucky that it's worked out a little bit for me. Yeah.
Do you feel you're at where you wanted to be? Do you feel
I feel close, actually. And it's been in the last year or so. I'll tell you, Twin Cities last year was the Twin Cities Con, was the first show, the first moment in my career. And I've been doing this for 2025 is my 20th anniversary in publishing. I sold my first story in 2005. Oh, wow. Twin Cities was the first moment in my career where I felt like things were finally coming together. And that experience I mentioned earlier about Dead Malls and Des Moines Con was the moment I realized that, this may work out.
Right, because when you're doing something like this, right, when you're making that decision that this is what I'm doing full time, I suppose you're always looking for some of that validation of like, am I getting it? Am I resonating? I mean, it's, I feel the same way about the show sometimes. We do it every night, but if we don't ever hear from anybody, it's like, are we just talking to the ether of the planet? So I get that. You want to know that you're making some sort of waves with your readers.
It's very lonely. It's very some days are bad, some days are rough.
Yeah.
And when you hear from readers or people just respond to something, or like you and I are now, we're connecting over our common experience growing up. And Dead Malls has been a great talisman for me to do that with people, with readers, because it just speaks to people and it speaks to their experience. And then I'm able to relate that, and we can kind of share that together. And that's a real joy. And that is very validating. It's very rewarding. And it makes it much less lonely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm very happy for you. It sounds great, and it looks like everything. These books look great. I'm gonna have to check some of them out. I'm gonna read Dead Malls. Now, are you able to say anything that's coming out next? You're working on stuff, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, the next couple books actually will be in the series. So book 5 in Ever the Hero series, and then book 3 in the Stargun Messenger trilogy Those will be next year at different points next year. So that's next. And I have a ton of people asking me already about Dead Moles 2. And I got to be honest and say, I didn't really think about one. Wasn't my intent, but if the idea occurs to me, I'd be happy to do it. I'm trying to. I sort of feel like I spoke to the part of my childhood that I wanted to speak to, and so if I did another one, I'd have to speak to something else, and I don't know what that is yet, but we'll see. Maybe something will come to me.
Maybe some, as Sean Connery once said, "Never say never."
Exactly.
That's kind of how that works. Before we let you go, Adam, do we have a winner for those Renaissance Festival tickets?
We do. Cheryl from Bloomington was our number 5 caller.
Oh, congratulations, Cheryl. Very happy to do that. Once again, tomorrow at the Divine Lights Investigation, we're giving away some tickets to the Renaissance Festival. So please check that out over at Facebook, over at Charvinity on Facebook, and sign up for that under events. Darby, this was a great conversation, and I'd love to have you back if you're open to it, and we can talk about your other work or the new stuff as well. That would be fantastic.
I would thank you for having me, guys. This has been a ton of fun. I'm glad that we met at Des Moines Con, and absolutely, I'd love to be back. Absolutely.
We would love to have you back, and maybe as we get closer to Twin Cities Con, we can get like you and Joe maybe on. We're getting enough independent authors that we could do like a round table too at some point. That'd be kind of fun.
Absolutely. Joe's great. I'd love to. Yeah,
he is really great. We'll stay in touch, and everybody, please go to darbyharn.com. I'll put that in all of our stuff out there tomorrow. We have our conversation with Paul Blake Smith. We're talking about the JFK conspiracy. Friday, Ernie Pack, as we talk about talking with Sasquatch and aliens at the Rock Island Esoteric Expo. Everyone, have a fantastic evening.
It's Brad Friedman, host of the Bradcast.